Welcome to my 6th video in balmy Anchorage, Alaska. Last week I asked you to pray for me on this trip. I can say that so far I've successfully not indulged in any of the ample and widely available temptation I have encountered. It's almost as if somebody wants me to fail and is deliberately making a ridiculous amount of free and what looks to be delicious food available to me. This has been a rough few days for me. Friday I got sick with strep throat. Saturday was spent rocking a 103-degree fever. But hey, I got weighed when I went to the doctor, so I have a number to report. I'm not sure how it compares to my starting weight because I don't know what that was. But I weighed 483 pounds. My guess is that's 15 pounds or more down from my starting weight. Well, anyway, back to my week. Sunday was it was a good season bowl, and Monday I spent 13 hours making a trip that usually takes about 9. I am now about halfway done with my trip, and I am coming down with a cold. Strep and a cold, double bonus. Yeah, so it's been a grueling week, and I am a hurting unit, so continued prayers for my well-being are appreciated. This trip has really made me have to face open rebellion. That is sin you do on purpose, and you just don't care. James chapter 4, verse 17 says, "So, whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." Now, I have stated several times in previous videos that I have no restrictions on what I can eat. The only restriction is that I can only eat when hungry and must stop when I get full. Now, this should come as no great epiphany to anybody, but that is how the system is supposed to work. If you get hungry, eat. Not hungry, do something else. It's pretty simple. Yet, it was an epiphany to me, which I must admit is kind of sad. I found, as I have confronted the temptations in front of me, I have used justification a lot to engage in open rebellion. Oh, sure, I dress it up with fancy names like planning or calorie counting. For example, I might say to myself, I have only eaten a rice cake and a banana today. That means I am extra hungry tonight, and a little 2 serving with dessert and an appetizer splurge is okay. It is this type of thinking that got me in this obese mess in the first place. Now let's examine the logic of my example. I didn't eat much today, so extra at dinner is fine as my premise. On its face, this seems to make perfect sense, and many people do it with no ill effects. But this is how sin is sneaky and tricks people like me into seriously abusing food, also known as binging, which let's just call it what it is, open rebellion. The reality of the situation is that it doesn't matter if I ate breakfast and lunch. If I am following the rules and only eating when hungry and stopping when full, it should then take roughly the same amount of food to get full whether I ate meals earlier in the day or not. It's not as if skipping a meal doubles the size of my stomach on the off chance I want to make up the meal. I am 41 years old and have just now come to this realization. This realization caused me to think about my meals and how easy it is for me to screw up and eat more than I should during them. I can point to several times where I ate just a little too much. This led me to think about saying grace before meals. Now, saying grace is something that I have never really done. This is likely because cramming food in my face as quickly as I can has always been vastly more important to me than thanking God for his provision. But this past month has been a time of growth for me, and now I have started to think about these kinds of things. So I am publicly committing to saying grace before meals going forward. I had this thought about saying grace right after sitting down to have breakfast at my hotel's breakfast buffet. The temptation to throw caution to the wind and go crazy was so strong. And that is when it dawned on me that I need to say grace before I eat. Not just grace to thank the Lord for his provision, but also to ask him to help me eat a godly meal that consisted of a godly amount of food and to protect me from the sin I desperately wanted to pursue. James chapter 1 verse 15 says, "Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death." I have until recently lived a fully grown sinful life in regards to food and was on my way to death. God has shown me mercy and forgiveness. He has given me another chance, but this chance came with a warning. He told me this is my final chance, and that if I did not choose to follow him, I would die. and not only would I die, that I would burn. He gave me that specific message a couple of weeks ago. As I sit here in my hotel room with temptation all around me, God wanted me to remember which master I am choosing to serve, and the penalty I will incur if I choose to give in to my temptation and indulge my desires. Hebrews chapter 10, verses 26 through 31 says, "If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sin is left, but only a fearful expectation of judgment and of raging fire that will consume the enemies of God. Anyone who rejected the law of Moses died without mercy on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much more severely do you think someone deserves to be punished who has trampled the Son of God underfoot, who has treated as an unholy thing the blood of the covenant that sanctified them, and who has insulted the Spirit of grace? For we know him who said, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay.' And again, the Lord will judge his people. It is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of the living God."